Undoubtedly, anxiety is the greatest antagonist in Inside Out. But did you know that long before being anxiety, this emotion had another role in people's minds? Or have you ever stopped to think that everything it did was always thinking about what was best for Riley? We found information within Pixar itself that sheds light on the true origin of this emotion, which almost led the film's protagonist to the hospital. We also explore every moment this orange emotion appeared in the film, revealing its true intentions.
Look, we all have a job to do. I plan for the future.
Origin of anxiety. When Pixar decided to create anxiety, they envisioned a story never before revealed, at least until now. As you may know, Inside Out 2 is just the beginning of a series of films that will follow Riley's life continuation. The wait for the third film in the Emotion Saga is only a matter of time. In this next Inside Out film, it's likely we'll learn more about how anxiety initially was the TIA, which stands for Transitional Integration Advisor. And no, we didn't make this up. The idea comes from Pixar's art book that has been made available to the public. In this origin story, anxiety wouldn't even be an emotion per se, but rather an assistant that would help other emotions deal with Riley's puberty, accompanying them throughout adolescence. She knew all the emotions deeply, which is why at various points in the film she expressed admiration for Joy and showed a desire to work alongside her. This demonstrates that she always observed from a distance all the actions of the main emotions in the girl's mind. However, TIA realized that over time, her moment to act was drawing nearer. She felt her responsibility was immense, as it could determine Riley's future, perhaps forever. Therefore, gradually, even before her appearance in headquarters, she wore herself down and worsened day by day, acquiring the somewhat strange appearance that we all know. However, her primary directive to guide Riley through the transition from childhood to adulthood was always her noblest goal, and this mission was the reason we saw anxiety do everything she did throughout the film. Upon careful observation, we realized many of her actions were always aimed at seeking the best for the girl, which is certainly something very noble. And to prove you're paying attention to our sad story involving anxiety, comment below #TIA, referring to the orange emotion's former role. Repressing emotions. Perhaps you don't know yet, but puberty is marked by something we've always heard about but aren't quite sure of: hormones. And the truth is, these little guys are responsible for the new control panel becoming so sensitive. It's proven that hormones directly influence mood and emotions in a very intense way, and it's at this moment that the feeling of anxiety takes hold of teenagers and decisions aren't always well made. For example, when anxiety decides to repress Riley's 5 main and basic emotions, locking them away in the safety vault. So, although that was a wrong decision by anxiety, she was clearly being influenced by the hormones increasing inside Riley, affecting her decision-making ability. Because we know very well what happened to our protagonist when only 2 emotions were suppressed in the first movie. So we all had an idea of what could happen when 5 emotions were suppressed at once. The problem is, anxiety thought this time would be different because she was there, and she would do everything to ensure Riley's future was as best as possible. And despite her good intentions, the orange emotion couldn't have been more mistaken, as became clear when Riley had a panic attack on the ice rink bench, which certainly was something anxiety never wanted to happen, but was undoubtedly a direct result of her actions in Riley's life. Apology. Arguably, the key moment that truly proves anxiety had the best intentions is when Riley overhears the hockey team talking about her. At that moment, the orange emotion realizes she needs to make amends in the best possible way for what she believed Joy had done wrong. So we see the future new leader of emotions take a noble action, apologizing for Riley's mistake. Even the emotions themselves commend anxiety's initiative because it truly was the right thing to do, as a sincere apology is a really cool thing to do. This demonstrates that the path the new emotion desired to take was aimed at guiding the girl during this complicated phase of life. She was truly determined to make her a better person, somewhat like her previous definition indicated, as a transitional integration advisor, who would always make the best decisions for Riley's future. The problem was that anxiety didn't quite gauge this well, so she often ended up overdoing it, thus creating the very problem she intended to avoid. So, no matter how good the intentions of the orange emotion were, and as good as her start in the girl's mind control center was, we gradually realized she herself ended up straying from her main goal, as seen in Pixar's art book. In its faint sadness, the essential function of the orange emotion was to guide the other emotions to influence Riley's mind and actions with examples worth following. However, she felt it would take an eternity for the older emotions to change their ways and adapt to the new and sensitive control panel. So it became clear that anxiety's biggest dilemma was never her intentions, but rather the relentless haste she demanded of herself to adjust to the new chapter in our protagonist's life. And this impatience was primarily what led her down a path very different from what Riley's brain had planned for the girl, bringing consequences that could be extremely serious, not only during high school, but throughout her entire life. And as life is full of opportunities, don't miss the chance to subscribe to our channel by clicking the button below if you haven't already. New friendships. One of the times we witness anxiety taking action to do what's best for Riley is when the emotion goes out of her way to ensure our protagonist makes new friends, which almost becomes touching in a certain way. There's nothing wrong with this by itself, as having friends is definitely a positive thing. The problem is, to achieve this, she ends up prioritizing it, where her old friendships take a back seat. Certainly, this is a path that should never have been taken, even though anxiety believes it's the best way to ensure a more stable future for Riley's social life at that moment. Entering puberty, it's normal for teenagers to begin exploring their identity and seek greater independence. The problem is, this inevitably generates great uncertainties and many fears, especially related to the future, which is exactly the area where anxiety comes in to try to solve all the problems that could happen. But this is another even bigger problem, because many of these problems may never actually become reality, filling Riley's mind with things that will only bother her and never truly threaten her social life and friendships. This causes entirely unnecessary suffering in the girl's mind, leading her to make hasty and thoughtless decisions, such as even hurting one of her best friends. At this moment, Anxiety herself knew something was very wrong, but she couldn't stop herself anymore, so it took Joy's intervention to save both the orange emotion and Riley from the whirlwind of things causing the panic attack. It's truly sad to see that things turned out so differently from what she had imagined for our protagonist. Guilt feeling. And that's exactly why we can be sure that Anxiety has a constant feeling that accompanies her throughout all moments, the guilt for all the bad things that happen in Riley's life. For example, as we said, Anxiety, when witnessing everything that happened in the first movie, from the place where she lived before going to the Riley's Mind Control Center, must have thought many times that if she had been there at that moment, Riley probably wouldn't have taken that almost return to Minnesota alone. Remembering that in the beginning, Pixar's conception would be that she was just the transitional integration advisor, and just by not being there when it was necessary, Anxiety already felt guilty. In this way, we can understand better because when she meets the old emotions, she feels the need that from that moment on she will have to do everything so that Riley will have the best life possible. So we can say that Anxiety's primary goal has always been to prevent the same thing from happening again to our protagonist. At the same time, the orange emotion would finally rid itself of the disturbing guilt that had tormented it for so long. The touching and very important detail is that as we reach the end of the movie, we clearly see that the new emotion is feeling even more guilty than ever. This is because all it truly wanted in its existence was for Riley's life to always be much better. But unfortunately, everything it did led the girl once again down the wrong path. On the other hand, and despite everything, the good part of the story is that Anxiety is now living in harmony with all the emotions it once treated with such indifference. And best of all, enjoying its calming tea in its relaxing armchair, while also assisting the other emotions when needed, which is exactly what should have happened from the beginning. Now there are no more culprits. Everything is working together for Riley's well-being. Certainly, stories like Anxiety's are very moving and help us become better people, and that's what we wish for you every day, the best. That's why we're also leaving 2 really cool videos for you to watch and continue enjoying great videos with us. Thanks, and see you next time.